All right, Cheeser Sloan, welcome to another HRL recap. So I don't know if this is going to be a regular thing. Obviously, this one, I've been pretty consistent on doing like every 2 weeks for these, and this one, obviously, we just did a recap, and I'm doing this one again on week 3. I don't know if this is going to be a regular thing where I do them after every week. I'm mostly doing this one. Well, 2 reasons. Triple Crown, so it is kind of almost like 2 weeks. It's a little bit more than normal, so it's a little bit different. But also because we have like a rule change and some other stuff with that to talk about in this one. And I already mentioned it on Discord. We already talked about it on Discord. A lot of people were discussing it. But wanted to add it in here as well for a little further insight on it. And then also, like, if you missed any of the discussion on Discord, because I know things can move quickly on there and things can get buried, so wanted to have both. But anyways, let's get into the recap for this one. Obviously, big week of the season. It's going to be, or after this, it was a quarter of the way through the season, with it being week 3 of 12 and Triple Crowns, so really important night. Race started off, or the night started off with a banger race. At Yosemite, where Camby got, I guess you could say, like the first upset win of the season, and it was kind of done in that fashion too, because Camby held on to his jokers the whole way. I think it was literally like the last 2 laps is when Camby decided to go for the jokers, so literally holding on to them until the very last moment. And you kind of, like, watching the race, you kind of forget about Camby. And then also, I thought a Joker was taken earlier, and it wasn't. I even checked, and it definitely was not. They were both at the end, so that kind of, like, messed with it, too. I think in the commentary side, like, I kind of thought there was a Joker taken early on, but there wasn't. So you kind of, like, forget about Camby with the way the race plays out, and it's a good race without Camby, and then Camby just comes in at the end and just steals it, and with a pretty big gap, too. And then I watched the race back from Camby's POV, and it was just insane. Like, the strategy worked out like super well, and led to a very clean victory. So yeah, Slunch and Camby taking the first 2 RX wins, and it's a huge win. I don't want to underplay it at all. It's a huge win for Camby. I think there could be, we'll get to it when we look at the points, I think there could be a pretty spicy wildcard race. I think Camby could be involved in that. So getting this win, getting those wildcard points on the board from this win is absolutely massive. So obviously, like, the points haul itself is big, but depending on how the season goes for Camby, that wildcard point haul could end up being even more important potentially. So just like a huge first race performance. I ended up taking second in this one, Detail third. Some penalties were doled out. That affected some things as well. Roman fourth, and Hunter fifth. And then we go to race 2. And this one got kind of cheesy. I'll try to explain it the best that I can for the ending of this race. First of all, I want to say, until the cheese at the end, there was an unfortunate late caution, and then that kind of led to some cheese, as it tends to do, unfortunately. Until then, this was a pretty solid race, actually. I was a little worried this was one of my tracks. I was a little worried it wasn't going to race super well, because it's a very weird layout for a terrain oval even. But it actually turned out pretty decent. And the racing on it was a lot better than I expected, and there was a lot of really good crossovers and battles in this one. And yeah, it was actually, like, really good for battling. And again, I was worried about it. I thought it could maybe be an absolute shit show, and it really wasn't. And I was really, really pleased with that. But in the end, I ended up taking the win for this one. iPod with a huge second place, Blake third, Real Deal fourth, and Detail fifth. And the results might seem kind of weird. So basically what happened is there was a late race restart, and Real Deal kind of just didn't give iPod room at all. iPod trying to make a move for the win and just got absolutely denied by Real Deal. So Detail is trying to find a solution to it that, properly penalized Real Deal, but also didn't completely screw iPod and, not affect other people too much. So I think what he ended up doing was a freezing of the field the lap before that incident, and just applying the penalty and going results-wise by that, which might seem a little weird, but just explaining where he's coming from. He's just trying to find, like, a fair outcome to this, because it was a very big incident that obviously had a huge impact on the ending of the race. So yeah, that's where he's coming from there, just trying to find like the best solution possible to it. That being said, part of the reason why we're doing this change that I'll get to later is because these situations keep happening, like these late cautions that lead to not quite green-white checkers, but they're essentially green-white checkers. I think this one was like 3 to go. They keep happening, and we want to try to prevent this from happening. Like I'm fine with there being like a late restart that leads to, you know, only a few laps to go. Like I'm fine with that happening every once in a while. I feel like it's happening like damn near every week. And it's getting kind of frustrating from like a racer's perspective and a spectating perspective, but more on that later. But there's your results, so that kind of explains why it happened. If the results look kind of weird, it was a freeze field on how it was the lap before that incident happened, because the incident was so impactful and kind of cheese. Like iPod, I'm not gonna say for sure wins the race if that incident doesn't happen, but at the very least gets top 3. And it was pretty blatant too. Like if you watch the replay, it wasn't one where like, you know, I don't think Real Deal was doing it like, I don't think it was intentional, like malicious intent, but it was just like, I mean, it was a pretty conky crash. There, you know, it's definitely penalty worthy. So anyways, moving on from Malakian, we go to Convolution, the last race of the night. And Detail had a really strong start, and once he got to the lead, didn't really look back on this one. Took a very convincing victory, 2 in a row for him now on the terrain races. I ended up taking 2nd on this one. Real Deal 3rd. No penalties this time around. Sorry. 4th Roman, and 5th Slaunch on this one. But yeah, Convolution was probably the most like chill race of the night. There was still some like good battles throughout it, but I don't know. It seemed like this race was very like separated in terms of the gaps between drivers. So yeah, the start was pretty intense, but after that, I feel like this was the most chill race of the night. Malakian and Yosemite saw a lot more straight up battling like throughout the whole race, I'd say. But that being said, not that there wasn't any good battles. The backpack, I think we're going at it for quite a while. Real Deal and I had a really good battle for podium spot. Roman was involved in that for a bit. Slaunch was falling from his starting position, so he was involved in a lot of battles. So there's still some good highlights. But yeah, that's how it played out. And yeah, Detail getting that win, the last race of the night. So three different races, 3 different winners. 2, Camby and I putting our 1st on the board for the season, and Detail stamping his 3rd. So overall results, ended up taking the overall 2-1-2, 47 points. Detail took 2nd with 43. And then Real Deal, those penalties really hurt him a lot. 3rd with 38. Roman 4th with 37. Blake 5th with 34. Slunch 6th with 32. iPod 7th with 31. Camby 8th with 29. Hunter 9th with 28. Oh yeah, Camby had a lag out on the oval, so that kind of hurt Camby's chances a lot at getting a good overall finish. I think Camby was actually doing pretty well too, so I would imagine probably would have gotten around top 5, at worst like 7th. So that would have improved Camby's overall a lot. So that was obviously kind of unfortunate. 9th Hunter with 28, 10th Soul with 22, 11th Elite with 21, 12th Vulcan with 14, 13th Coop with 13. All right, let's go into the points. So the points, so yeah, so this is why points lead battle, really tight between Detail and I right now. I caught it a bit, but Detail still has the points lead by 1 point. Slaunch has dropped back a bit. Obviously, the first 2 weeks pretty solid, and then this last week the Triple Crown was kind of rough, so Slaunch looking to bounce back this next upcoming week, I'd say. And then Roman, kind of the opposite of Slaunch, like the early being like kind of meh, but has been kind of slowly getting into his groove, I feel like. You know, it's not really been like rapid, but he's getting there, and so starting to pick up in points a little bit. 84, you know, 6 off Slaunch, and then they have a big gap on iPod. iPod is in 5th. iPod is in 5th, so that's pretty crazy. iPod currently in Grand Finals qualification position. We'll have to see if iPod can keep that up, but that's absolutely massive with 71. Camby comfortably in 6th, comfortably making the cut right now on points with 67 as well. Although, again, many things can change, and Camby also has those 2 wildcard points in the back pocket as well, which is very helpful. Vulcan has the first wildcard spot right now. Real Deal has the other one. They both have 2 wildcard points. Vulcan has the points in the tiebreaker as well. But yeah, they both have 2 wildcard points. That's why Vulcan and Real Deal are in those wildcard spots right now. But wow, Vulcan, Hunter, Soul, all the Brits in a group tied with 58. That's kind of crazy, and right on the bubble of making it into, you know, the points qualification positions for the grand finals. They're right there. Blake making some gains in 10th with 50, so also like close, and also missed a week. So if you consider that, Blake is actually in a, if you consider the missing week, Blake is actually in not too bad of a spot. And in terms of like average finish wise and like points earned, you know, if he can make enough rounds, could potentially be in that top conversation. So have to keep an eye on him. And then Real Deal, as of course, it's always a conversation and a question of, you know, how many nights does he make, and then how do the wild cards go. So we'll have to see. You know, might have to slap down a couple of race bans too with 2 penalties in one night. Like, that's pretty bad. Okay, so anyways, Squeezy with 22 with the 1 week showed up, and then Elite 21, Turkey, all these 1 week guys, 20 for Turkey, 15 for Armada, and Coop 13. So hopefully see those guys at some more races soon. But yeah, good battles throughout the points. We have a points lead right now. We have a good 3rd, 4th battle. We have 5th and 6th Camby and iPod very close. iPod being in the top 5 right now is crazy. The 3-way Britlander battle. And again, like, I think that I think 5th through, like, I don't know, 10th or 11th is going to be really spicy this season. And if you look at it right now, I just think it supports that. Like, if this season keeps going the way that it's going, I feel like the battles have been decent. Like, there's been some good drama for that wild card spot and those top 6 spots in the first 2 seasons of the year. But I think this one will absolutely topple that by quite a bit for the race for those positions, the way that it's looking right now. So I hope things continue when looking at that, because yeah, like, seeing that battle for those positions would be really freaking cool. For it to be, instead of like a, you know, come down to like a 2-way battle, it's like almost like a 5-way battle like it is right now. That would be really awesome. So I hope that continues, and I hope that it's really spicy, the fighting for getting in those last grand final spots. Because yeah, you have some upsets right now. Like Hunter, I want to say, has made it to both of them. Hunter's out right now. Soul has made it to both of them so far, I want to say, and Soul is out right now. So those are the 2 like big upsets. Camby's been like on the cusp and not making it, and is in right now. Vulcan's in right now. So like, yeah, there's some good stuff in there that's very interesting, and we're gonna have to follow throughout the season. But it is still early, so that's all I can really talk about with the points for now. Going to the schedule. So for next week, it's gonna be, or for this week, it's gonna be like the day of when this goes up, I think. It's Snowback Pines MX. You can find this on Details files, and then Montana Trails Raceway. This is on Blake's files. Yeah, I think, did I put this up on mine too? I think it's just on Blake's. But yeah, so an MX and a train oval. So we're gonna have the 2nd MX of the season, the 3rd train oval of the season. And at the end here, what I want to talk about for the train oval is we're going to be experimenting for this race, and for 100% this terrain oval race and the next one, and then we'll kind of like reevaluate it and see like how it worked. We're gonna be testing out a new rule. So what I've noticed, and I think we've all noticed this on the management side, is that and I do want to say, like, don't get this conflated with me being frustrated by the new like cautions ending the race rule at all. That's not the problem. I still like that. But I've noticed that like a lot of the races are coming down to like a late race caution shakeup. Still, it may not be quite a green white checkered, but it might be 3 to go. It might be 4 to go. It might be 5 to go. It's not quite a GWC, but it's really close. And then a lot of the races are ending under caution before we reach the scheduled distance as well. Now again, don't conflate these things. I do like that rule still. I do not like dealing with the drama of the green white checkers. If these races were going the way that they were, and there was the old GWC rules, I think we'd be so fed up with it by now, with like people being frustrated. Like, I think those same situations, I think it'd be even worse. So don't like get confused there. That being said, I still like wish we could end more races just under green. And I'm fine with the oval races having different types of endings, but that's the problem, is that right now they kind of don't. Like, I feel like they're all kind of ending the same, or like very close to similar way, where it's a late caution with 5 or 4 to go, and then there's a late restart with, you know, that amount of laps, and then, you know, they wreck on white flag coming to the white flag, or maybe we get to the checkered. But the race, largely what happens in most of the race doesn't really matter too much. It's like what happens on that last restart. And it's just getting, again, from a spectator standpoint and a racer's perspective, it's getting really frustrating, because in the past, like, we've had races go the distance. Like, my example that I think of is Barvo. Yes, there's a lot of Barvo races, if you go back, that have GWCs and crazy late race restarts. Like, yeah, Barvo definitely had a lot of those. But honestly, if you think about it, and I promise, if you go back and look at a lot of those races, a lot of them had really long green flag stints. A lot of them did not have that. I want to say some Barvo races even went cautionless, or if not cautionless, like close to cautionless, maybe like 1 caution. For every like Barvo race that had like crazy late race restarts like that, I swear there was like another one where it was actually like pretty clean and green. Like that would happen. Whereas now, this year, like recently with these oval races, I feel like it's just like always late race caution, almost always ending under yellow. And that's getting a little bit frustrating. And I want the race results of these races to like better reflect, you know, how the race has gone up to that point, and not feel determined by those late race chaotic restarts as much. So what we're doing, and there's discussion about this on the Discord to start, what we're doing to start with, there could be other changes in the future, is for the last quarter of the race, we're going to move to single wide restarts. So obviously it doesn't round very well for Montana Trails with it being 85 laps. Cairns Raceway will be a lot easier on the math. It'll be with 20 to go. From 20 to go onward, it'll be single wide restarts. For Montana Trails, I think we're doing, I put it on the Discord. I don't remember. I want to say it's like 21 to go. I want to say off the top of my head. I mean, that works out about right, yeah, if we like round a certain way. So 21 to go onward is when we're going to single wide restarts. So the reason why we're doing this, and the drivers will be reminded of that, and we'll remind ourselves of it before the race starts as well. But we're doing it in an effort to hopefully like remedy that issue a little bit. We're hoping that like if those late race cautions still happen, it doesn't feel like that determines the race result as heavily because of it being single wide restarts. But I do think there will still be, you know, room for those like crazy plot twists and moves to happen with single wide restarts. And if anything, I think it'll be even more like impressive and shocking, like if somebody is able to pull that off in a single wide restart format than double wide with all the chaos. Like if somebody's able to make a late race pass for the lead on a short restart with single wide, it's going to be even more impressive, I think. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. It's going to be the last quarter of the race. And we'll say it for every race. We'll say the lap count, like when it changes. We're going to switch to single wide restarts if there are cautions that need restarts at that point. And we're going to try it out. We're going to see how it goes. And we're going to see if it cleans things up a little bit. We're hoping that it cleans things up a little bit. And we're hoping that it makes the ovals seem a little more like legit. I don't want to imply that they're not. But to some extent, yes, I do think the results have been like very chaotic. And are, yeah, like heavily reflecting that late race restart and not the whole race. And we want there to be a balance. Like the ovals can still have these late race cautions. They can still have these plot twists. Like I'm okay with that, but we want there to be a balance. And I feel like if you look at the terrain oval races recently, and if you look at how they've gone, I feel like that balance is way too far to like the chaotic side. And we want to try to like rein it in a little bit and find that happy medium. This rule is our first attempt at doing that. So we're going to do it for these 2 races. We're going to see how it goes. Maybe we'll stick with it for the whole season, or maybe we'll go even further. We'll have to wait and see. But there you go. There's that. There's the schedule. There's the recap. There's all that cheese. We're just getting to the point where I usually wrap these up. So yeah, that's it for this one. Yeah, I know it's an interesting rule change, and it'll probably be a little bit weird at first. But I'm hoping it achieves the desired result, and I'm hoping that, you know, people don't look at ovals as being like as cheesy as they have been recently, and you know, that outlook is kind of changed, and like the racing reflects it, and it's more fun to watch and more fun to race as well, hopefully, because of this change. That's what I'm hoping for. We'll see how it goes. Hope you guys enjoyed the recap, and see you at the races.